I don't. Louis Mangione, the kid who killed the
Oh, yeah.
CEO of what was it, United Healthcare?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that displaced emotions, or is that just a guy who just murdered somebody? He was mad at the federal. He's mad at the. I'm not. And again, I know I might get ripped apart for this. Okay, he was mad at the healthcare system. There's no justification on killing somebody.
Well, I mean, in the way we're thinking about it, that's what it would be. It would be a person who's mad at the health system, who's mad at the government, who's mad at their parents, who's mad at whatever they're mad at. And they, you know what, I'm mad at that. I'm going to get this guy from the health system. And all of this stuff that they're carrying around, they find someone to displace it onto.
I tell you what, though.
That may not necessarily be the case. It's a hypothesis. It's a possibility that that's what it is.
I'm going to put the gangster hat on. Okay, from a gangster perspective, we would have called this kid back in the street if he was with us. We would have called him a good kid.
Good in what sense?
No, we would have been proud of him. The way he did the piece of work. First off, again, I'm talking like we're back in the street, right? Okay, we would have back in the street, if we were sitting down at a table and this kid was with us, meaning that he was part of the Lucchese family, and he went out and carried a piece of work out like that, not towards the CEO of a healthcare company, but just a piece of work in general. A piece of work meaning carrying out a murder to go kill somebody. The way he did it and how he got away with it and how he navigated through the city and how they had the manhunt on him and all that other stuff, we would have classified him as he's a good kid. He's with us, and we would have been proud of him. Whereas today, I got a different perspective on that.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So you look back and you try to correlate, if I'm making any sense with this, right? It just, you think about it and you go like this, you can't, even today, I guess they still will look at him like as, you know, I mean, there's a lot of people who want to see this. A lot of people who want to see him beat the case. They're supporting him. They're raising money and all that other stuff.
Yes.
You know, people that have nothing to do with the mob.
Yeah.
Just in general.
It's not displaced anger if you feel like, well, it's a job, I got to do it. That's not displaced anger.
Okay, so that makes...
That's different. You know,
well, there's no anger at all. How
there's no anger at all. Right.
What do you call that?
Well, that's a cold-blooded murder is what that is.
Okay.
I mean, if there's no anger at all, and you're saying, you know what, I decided that this person, you know, has to go for whatever reason, that's just premeditated. And a lot of people do that aren't in the mob. You know, I mean,
we're not only talking about the mafia here. We're talking about human in general.
Right. No, there's. I mean, you know, you watch these shows where the loving couple, you know, one day the guy's in the hospital all crippled up. They don't know why, and then they find out that his wife's been feeding him antifreeze in the tea. That's pretty cold-blooded. There's, you know.
I got to take a break. So another thing that I've been meaning to ask you that I've seen was very interesting to me was guilty but insane verdict. How can you be guilty with an insane verdict?
Well, Arizona is one of not all states have this, but Arizona is one of the states that does have it. And what it means is they're saying, okay, you committed this crime, but during the time of the crime, you didn't know the difference between right or wrong. So you were insane at the time of the crime. Or at the time of the crime, you had an impulse that made you do it. So you were guilty, but you were under the influence of a mental illness at the time of the crime. And so what happens is now I don't know where it is now because they no longer have a state hospital. It used to be that you would be sentenced to the state hospital, and then you would have treatment at the state hospital for restoration of your sanity. Now, I'm going to have to, it's been a while since I've actually worked with this particular. Now, it may be that when they restore you, you still have to serve a sentence.
After the state hospital stay.
After the state hospital.
So the good meals and the cush place to do time, you still have to go to prison.
Right. Yeah. You still have to serve the sentence. Or another option might be that when you're restored, there's a committee at the hospital that can determine whether or not you should be released. So that's another, I think, part of that program. I'm not sure how it's working now, but the concept basically is that the court accepts that you were insane at the time of the crime, but they're going to help you get restored to your sanity and then kind of decide, do you serve out your sentence? Can you be released on parole? That kind of a thing. So it's very unique to Arizona.
It sounds like the state has a lot more loopholes than the feds do, because the feds, there's a lot of stuff that's not admissible. There's a lot of stuff that's, it's more like their way. Mm-hmm. It sounds like the state, you got a lot more leeway on defending yourself.
I think that may be true.
You get your discovery faster. I know that for sure, yes. Because the feds, what they'll do is they'll piecemeal the discovery. And you got to wait like right up until the day you go to trial to get your discovery. The state, I think they give you discovery fast. Everything is more, I think, I won't say fair, but I think there's more of a due process in the state.
I think another factor is that at the state level, the feds deal with big crime. At a state level, you're dealing with an insane person who's on the street, who robs a candy store and punches a woman in the face and runs out. I mean, you're dealing with more petty type of stuff that happens more within the community, so to speak. So that probably does affect how they handle the law in terms of the mental health and insanity kind of issues, because they have to deal more with nitty-gritty stuff that goes on in the streets. Whereas I think the feds deal with much bigger kinds of things. So maybe some of the issues that the state has to deal with, the feds don't have to deal with quite so much. Because you think of it, I mean, think of the people that are homeless. So many of them are actually mentally ill. And a lot of people commit crimes that are mentally ill because they're out of it.
You've been to San Diego before, right?
Yes, I have. It's been a while. It's been a number of years.
I don't think everybody, they're acting like they're homeless, but they're not. I mean, I had an experience once where, there was a homeless person, posing to be homeless. Guy had a cell phone. He had a car, license. I mean, it was a joke. I don't know why they do it. Yeah. A lot of people you look at, I'm not saying there's people that rightfully are homeless, but some of these people make you think. You look at them and you say, wait a second, are you really homeless?
Yeah.
Walking around with a cell phone, you're walking around with, you look like you don't look homeless.
Yeah.
You just never know.
It may be that there's more people playing the system now than there used to be at one time.
That's what I'm getting at.
That could be a very definite factor.
Yeah, like whatever system, whatever they have for homeless.
Yeah,
whatever benefits they get,
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you about when a person comes out of, let's say a person comes out of prison, you believe therapy is important.
Well, I do, because I think sometimes the part that therapy can play is simply being a support system. So if a person comes out of prison, having someone you can talk to, having someone that you can just solve problems with. I'm dealing with this problem in my life right now. This is a difficulty I'm having. I don't know if it has to be therapy like going back into your childhood and resolving issues.
Like your trauma egg.
Exactly. But more about, how do I solve these problems that I'm facing right now? And I don't feel like I have any support. And how can I get some help in thinking these things through? I think in a very practical way, therapy and counseling can be very helpful.
I agree. It reminds me when I went to that intensive therapy, right? The first thing they had us do, it was from 7 in the morning till 7 at night, starting on a Monday, and it ended on the following Sunday, right? But Saturday we had to go part-time, and they told us to meet at a horse farm.
Okay.
Where they were having horses. Okay. And what they did was there was a team of psychologists or psychiatrists. They were all there with pad and pencil, and they had horses there, right? And they said, okay, they gave us chores to do with the horses. And I'm saying, what the fuck is this? I paid all this money. What's this got to do with psychology?
Right.
Well, it showed that the way humans interact with horses tells you a lot about that person. I don't know why it's a horse. I don't know why it is what it is, but scientifically proven that the way whether we interact with a horse, how we approach the horse, how we react to a horse, how the horse approaches us, reacts to us, or whatever the case is, that tells you about the true makeup of a person. And I could not believe it, right? They had us interact with the horses. They all watched and observed us, and they took notes. So it's all they were doing, taking notes. And we must have did these things as a team. Some things we did in a group, like try to get the horses to do this, or there was some kind of problem solving, but it was all to do with the horses, right? And it was about maybe, I want to say 2 or 3 hours long, maybe 4 hours, right? Well, at the end of your session, which is a week later, they give you a report on what they assess your personality traits, your whatever makes you tick, right? And it was so accurate, all from the study with the horses. I couldn't believe it. Then the next thing was this Gestapo therapy. I think you mentioned it once. Gestapo or Gestalt?
Oh, Gestalt.
Okay, I got it wrong. Gestapo. Gestalt therapy is like, in layman terms, what was that?
Well, Gestalt therapy is based on having some kind of experience, emotional experience, like psychodrama, where you act something out. So that you try and have the experience of what it's like, and then talk about how that experience was so that you can understand it better. That's kind of what Gestalt is, therapy. So Gestalt therapy has a lot of things where you role play. One person takes the role of the wife, the other person, and then they switch. The wife will take the role of the husband, and
Psychodrama.
Yeah, so that they, what it feels like to be the other person, and then talk about that.
So psychodrama was one of my favorite classes because, the way it sounds, psychodrama, like, nobody was a psycho in the place.
Right.
That's just, I guess, the medical term, right? This guy came to PCS because he was being bullied all his life. Well, he was bullied from a kid. They scientifically proved that whatever happens to you from when you're born until 11 years old, I don't know why it's 11, shapes you for the rest of your life. It's proven. This guy was bullied as a kid. He would go home and tell his mom and dad, and then he got all these voices in his head. His mom would say one thing, the mother would believe him, the father wouldn't believe him, and all these things are going on. It carried with him to his whole life. And the guy was a real prominent attorney out of Texas, very successful. You would not think this guy had any issues at all, So we got to the psychodrama class. And mind you, we're going in these rooms from hour to hour. You're going to one-on-one therapy. You're going to a group session, one-on-one group. You're doing all different, one building to another building. And really, like, it's like a brain dump. Like, they're just taking you. I felt like they screwed my head open and just dumped my brain out and put a new one in, right? When you get done. But it's hard for you to keep remembering all that stuff to tap into it. You know what I'm saying? To make it like reflex. So anyway, we get to the psychodrama class, and that was his problem. So the lady that was there, the instructor, says, okay, who's going to play? I need somebody to play the mom. I need somebody to play the dad. I need somebody to play his friends. Somebody to play the bully. Somebody to play the tough voice, somebody to play the scared voice, different voices and stuff like that. And they set it up to where, you know, like they covered people, like they put blankets over people. So he would just hear their voice. He wouldn't see them, he would just hear them. And then his mother sat in the chair, and then the father sat in the chair. I chose to be the tough voice. Like I was the one that, the voice of confidence, you know? And they had a heavy bag there. Because when I first walked in the room, I said, what do they got a heavy bag in here for? Well, for that reason, because they wanted him to role play the whole trauma, which they called it a big T. Like they got big T's and little T's. You heard that before, right? They wanted him to role play the whole situation. And it was a lot of fun to do. But at the same time, this guy was really so emotional because he went back to his inner child, his crying child that we all have, right? The sobbing child, they call it. And this guy got all his emotions out. This guy was mad, sad, crying. You know, that's how much it moved him, right? So the instructor would tell the mother and ask him, okay, what would your mom say? Well, she would say this and that. And then she told that person that was there, okay, all I want you to do is just keep saying what his mom said. And what would your dad say? My dad would say this. Oh, all I want you to do is what his dad used to say. And then what happened is when the whole thing got reenacted, the instructor would say, she would snap and go, okay, mom, dad, like she was directing the whole thing. So towards the end, this guy was so worked up, okay? Because I'm yelling at him, kick his ass, punch him in the face, and everybody's yelling at the same time. Mother's going, I don't believe you, and the father's going, you're a disgrace. Everybody's ganging up and saying things. Finally, this guy just went, ah. They had the heavy bag, and he finally threw a punch. You can see the guy never threw a punch in his life, right? The guy threw a punch, and then after that, he fell on the floor, and he was just like, and I'm like, how do you feel? He's like, oh my God. You know, it's like when somebody gets baptized.
Yeah.
They throw him in the water, and he gets up, he's like, oh, I feel like, you know, brand new, right?
Yeah.
I had to hold in from laughing. I mean, it was a very emotional time for him, you know? Then at the end of the class, they said, okay, we're going to go around the room, and everybody give their opinion of what he should do when he goes back to Dallas.
Okay.
So everybody gave their opinion. When it came time to me, I said, I got a couple questions. Where is this guy that bullied you? He said, well, he's another attorney. He works in the same. I said, where's he at? He said, works in the same town. I said, okay. Here's what I advise you to do. When you go back to Dallas, walk in his office, grab him by his shirt and tie, and punch him in the face. It's going to solve all your problems.
I shouldn't be laughing.
The director goes, okay, FC, because I was on the Frank Capri, we're not going to promote or give any confidence of violence. I said, no, I'm not telling him to be violent.
No.
Punch him in the face the way he punched you in the face, and it's going to, you know.
That's a nonviolent punch in the face.
Yeah. Just the way you punch that heavy bag, go punch him in the face, you're going to feel a lot better. But there came times where you're going through this trauma egg, and the EMDR, I think, really was effective. You know, when you put on the headphones, and think of a happy place. Well, everybody thinks of a beach, you know.
Yeah.
You know, and think of your sad places, and then you get these vibrational.
Yeah.
You get these vibrational beeps in your head. You know what an EMDR is. And you hear these things going, and then they'll ask you a question like, what comes to your mind? So you say what comes to your mind.
Yeah.
And you almost get into this, I don't know if it's the hitting, they're tapping into your inner ear or what it is, but that vibe, that beeping sound that gets louder and louder, and then it fades away. I don't know what it does to sensors to your brain or your inner ear. I read about it, but then it got too complex for me. It was just going into like stuff like, I said, wait a second, I'm not trying to be a doctor here.
Yeah.
Right? But
I mean, did you find it helpful, or what did you?
Very helpful. Very helpful. I would do it again and again.